Okay, so here we go. We are in this age of brilliance. We are continuing where we left off with embodiment as the portal. Such a powerful portal, and um, it's time to really get that portal fully invoked and activated. For that, we have to open it first. Today, my intention is that we complete the 12 um, aspects of this portal of embodiment. So here we go. Just a quick recap. What is embodiment? Embodiment is when truth, wisdom, and brilliance move from being concepts that you understand to becoming the life that you live. It is a shift from talking about brilliance to actually being brilliance in your tone, in your presence, in your choices. It is a deep anchoring of energy into matter, physical matter. So your body, your heart, your mind, and spirit become aligned transmitters of brilliance. That's really what I mean by the gist of embodiment. And it matters because without embodiment, even the most profound insights, they remain fleeting, an aha moment that can just simply fade away. With embodiment, you become a living demonstration of what is possible. Your brilliance is not part-time, it becomes a full-body reality that influences everything that you engage in. So let's get into the 12 anchors of embodiment. For each one, I talk about why is it important, who does it impact, some integration practices that you can work with, what it looks, feels, and sounds like, and a simple test so you know that you are in the presence of embodiment. And other dangers that can unhook the anchor and how you protect yourself from that. The first anchor is presence that we talked about. The second anchor is alignment, which we also talked about already. The third one is breath, which we've covered. Fourth is choice, which we also have gone through. Fifth is dignity, that we've also covered. Sixth is stillness. And we began this and we stopped at this point. So let's look at stillness fully. Why is stillness important? It is in stillness that embodiment deepens. Noise unmoors it, if you like. And stillness is not silence. Stillness is that experience of being one with your presence. Who does it impact? It impacts you. How does it impact you? In terms of the clarity that you have. And the clarity that you have in terms of being able to discern what is an intuitive message versus what might be coming from your mind, because noise starts to automatically fade away. And when you have your clarity and you have your intuition, you also invoke creativity. How can you integrate stillness? It's, we have so many moments in the day. If you just allocate 5 minutes to stillness, and remember, with stillness, you don't have to stop what you're doing. You literally have to get into a realm where you're becoming an observer of what it is that you're engaged in. So, I would say, create a segment, daily stillness moment, and allocate 5 minutes to it. I find, for me, what I find is this integration practice, I find it most effective when I do it, in a very busy place. And I go into this 5 minutes of daily stillness. Now, not every day I'm in busy places, but I do like to, that's how I realize the value of stillness. You also understand what it means when you go into that deep space of observation. How do you experience stillness? Stillness feels spacious. You look serene. Sounds like silence, but you also feel very engaged. In stillness, you don't really talk that much, but if you're talked to, you do respond. Because it's as if every part of you is absorbing what is occurring around you. And a test that you can have about stillness, you can just literally ask this question of yourself before you go to bed. Have I given myself the gift of stillness today? And it's okay. If you haven't, then you can do it even before you go to bed, because you don't need that much time. Getting into a state of stillness, even as you go into bed, opens up a completely new realm in which dreams occur. The danger that can destroy this anchor of stillness, like really unmoor it, is overactivity. So sometimes you may be up against a deadline. And that being up against a deadline, when you are in a state of stillness and you use what I call as time segmentation, you really do protect yourself from getting into overactivity. Overactivity creates so much busyness that you actually may not even meet the deadline. Being in a state of stillness, knowing that there is a deadline to reach, and taking that next step next enables you to accomplish what you wish to accomplish. I mean, with all these books that I'm writing, and there's a sequence that you go through because there are launch dates that are already announced, I can so easily get into overactivity. Overactivity also becomes hyperactivity. But being in a state of stillness, taking that next step next, all of you here know about the flourishing triad. It keeps you in the center of the flourishing triad. When you go into slide into overactivity, you are instantly susceptible to meaning or blame. And any of those take vitality away from you. How can you guard yourself against this? By having these sacred pause rituals. Sometimes when people do the source mastery work with me, I share with you that others in different parts of the world, they use their Apple Watch. Every hour it lights up with their source on it. That's a pause ritual. Or just simply choosing to, setting a timer so that every hour for 1 minute you pause. Does not need any more than that. Choosing your B word and using the pause ritual to reconnect to that way of being is also something that will actually bring stillness in your presence. The important thing with these things is it can feel overwhelming to do all of these things. Integrate them with what you're up to. The seventh anchor. The seventh anchor is listening. Listening. Some of you were there at the immersion that I just did last weekend, and I talked about the 7 pathways to listening. So true embodiment listens, not just with ears, but with presence. What happens when you listen, not just with ears, but with presence? You understand not only what is being said, but really what is being communicated to you. You become connected to all of your senses. Who does it impact? It impacts your communication, your leadership, and the love frequency that you embody. So as a result, it amplifies your presence and impacts everyone that you interact with, directly or indirectly. That's a key word, directly or indirectly. Integration. How can you integrate it? What's the practice that you can use to integrate listening? Really listening like the Dalai Lama, like the other person is, the most revered person you've ever come across. Honoring and listening to your inner voice. Use your own check-in and check-out words. Practice those 7 pathways to listening. And those 7 pathways to listening are really the deep, non-judgmental listening. And what that does is it enables you to also listen to yourself in your whole and completeness. When you feel whole and complete, you are the embodiment of the calling of your soul. What does that experience of the listening anchor feel like? It feels connected. You feel connected, you look attentive, and your sound is affirming. Your voice has your rhythm. It has a gravitas of your presence. And that in itself, invites action from others in ways that you might not have experienced in the past. A simple test that you can use is, while you're practicing it, after a while, it just becomes normal and natural to you. It's so easy to integrate this. But a simple question that you can ask yourself, did I fully hear without preparing my reply? This is such a force of habit, preparing our reply in our head even before we fully heard it. A danger to watch out for is the danger of interrupting or dismissing, being dismissive. Both interrupting and being dismissive is a reactive behavior. And a reaction is reactivating an emotional trigger. Even if you don't feel there's an emotional trigger in you, the act of interruption and dismissal reactivates an emotional trigger, maybe in the other person. And then you're off track, you're stuck in a loop of justification, and you don't really get to the point. by being consciously, how you can guard yourself against it is, being really conscious of listening. All of you here know about the method of listening to transform performance, where you listen to someone, you know, imagining that they are the most revered person that you've met, someone you've been waiting to meet, and listen to them with complete presence. Listen without a filter. So I'm going to keep continuing. And if we have time at the end, I'll open it up for questions. The eighth anchor is integrity. Why is integrity an important anchor? Because when you are in a state of embodiment, embodiment collapses if integrity is compromised. However advanced you may be in your embodiment practices, the moment you go out of integrity, embodiment collapses. So there's something that I've done from time to time. And initially I've done it consistently for several years, is maintain an integrity file. Even acknowledging where you are out of integrity and having a game plan for how you're going to rectify that keeps you in a state of embodiment. It does not collapse. Your body is a brilliant partner to give you the message of when you are out of integrity. Who does it affect? It impacts what was it called? Integrity. I called it the integrity file, my personal integrity file, where I keep track of everywhere that I'm out of integrity. It may be to the way I eat, to my exercise regime, to having made a commitment and not having kept it, that sort of stuff, but everything is in there. I find that a very, very helpful, extremely helpful companion to me. Before it used to be an integrity file. Now it isn't an integrity file. It's a short list, only because I've been tracking it so diligently, and only because, I am quite diligent about embodied enlightenment and really not wanting for that to collapse in any way. It has become important for me. So I track it. But remember, embodiment is not only about enlightenment. You've decided that you wish to accomplish a certain result in your life or in your work. And you embody who you are being once that result is accomplished. And that is how you're going to show up. And that will automatically take care of the vibrational programming that is required for you to attract and magnetize and manifest that result. Embodiment is the easiest and the fastest access to that. So when you create something like an integrity file or an integrity list, it was a file initially because I would actually jot down what I had done about certain elements that I was out of integrity on, which hadn't quite resolved. Now that I've had many years, and particularly the 9 years in Bali gave me a lot of time and space to neutralize many of these areas, to complete on many of these areas. So now it just has to be a list. But initially, you may want to have it as a file. So main thing to remember is integrity is an anchor, because without that, embodiment collapses. Who does it impact? It impacts your credibility, trust, and self-respect. Doesn't matter what anybody else says or thinks or feels, you know? If your own credibility to yourself is impacted, your trust in yourself is diminished, your self-respect reduces. So tolerating, disrespectful behavior towards you or towards someone else, by someone else, maybe that, and you holding back and not saying anything about it, that also is putting you out of integrity. How can you integrate this integrity anchor practice? At least once a day, am I whole in thought and word and deed? You know, just do that. And actually, the yumminess check ongoingly throughout the day from time to time also gives you this answer. You will find a bit of yuckiness surfacing if you're not in a state of integrity. Unsaid communications, very big cause of being out of integrity. How do you feel when you are in a state of integrity? You feel solid. You look reliable. You sound authentic. And a test that you can use, and it's a really good question to ask yourself. Would I do or say this if I was being watched by the whole world? If I didn't need to, if I didn't have to, would I choose to do this? And that simple question is enough. Yeah, it's a powerful one, Ananta. So thank you for sharing that. The danger really is us becoming, us compromising. When you compromise, you may justify it to yourself, and you compromise as an emphatic choice that you make, understanding the consequences. But if you compromise just because you you don't know what else to do, or you just feel that you don't have a choice, that is self-betrayal. That is the biggest danger to this. And a guard against that is at least maintain a radical honesty with yourself. Hence the integrity list or the integrity file, whatever you choose to call it, is powerful. Even acknowledging it is extremely powerful. The ninth anchor is joy. Joy keeps embodiment radiant and magnetic. Joy is the action that you take once you have made the decision to be happy. And why is that the action? Because you can imagine, if embodiment is radiant and magnetic, and you're choosing to, you're clear on your own intention, then you're embodying you as the one who has already fulfilled and realized that intention. And joy becomes the way in which you show up. Joy becomes the choice of actions. Happiness is a consequence. So, I always say, those of you who heard me many times, I always say, always, always be building your treasure trove of actions that give you joy. So even if things aren't quite the way you expect them to be, you can always tap into those actions that give you joy. So your embodiment is radiant and magnetic. And what it does is when I experience it for myself, I am completely reconnected to what it is that I have intentioned. Who does it impact? It impacts you. And how does it impact you? It transforms your well-being, transforms your well-being, enriches your creativity, and amplifies your influence. And you see it as an evidence from how people react and respond to you. What can you do to integrate it? And this is a very sweet one, which is just cultivate delight daily, celebrate small wins. Make it a practice. Now, I found it very hard to celebrate, so it took me a while to actually start celebrating. And then here I'm talking about celebrate small wins. They would just pass. I wouldn't even notice them. So what I did was I started keeping track of like my own little tuck box of different ways in which I could celebrate. And they have changed from time to time. There was one particular point where my celebration would be a weekend of being in silence. I really loved that. You know, now I have sometimes the celebration is um, going out with having my grandma and grandma time, just me and the grandkids. That's a celebration. But I've got a number of things that are celebration, type ways in which I like to celebrate. So you start creating yours. But main thing is cultivate delight daily. I really love this. I love this. Cultivate delight daily. To me, delight is joy and being plugged into joy and being connected to what's making my heart sing and really feeling that and experiencing that and sharing that. How do you experience this? It feels uplifting. It looks radiant. And even though it may not be laughter, it sounds like laughter. And a simple question: what's a test that you can put for yourself? Did joy visit me today? That's a very sweet one. Did joy visit me today? I like to integrate things in what I'm doing, right? So here I am. I've come back really after 6 weeks after 3 weeks of being away. No, not three, maybe more than nearly 4 weeks of being away. So I've realized that I accumulated a lot of stuff in my travels. And now I'm going to tidy it all up. So one action, the way I tidy up, or the way I do a regular culling of stuff that I don't need anymore, is I take out everything that I have, everything. And I literally hold each thing close to my heart. Does it bring me joy? If it doesn't, it goes. Literally as simple as that. I'm looking at my dining table full of stuff that I've accumulated in my travels. Many things I bought, thinking that's really good, but it's like, okay, where am I even going to store these things? So does it give me joy? Is a practice that I'm going to use to choose what I keep and what I give away. And what can be a danger to this? Joy is draining seriousness. I'm pretty serious about joy, and I keep track of it. I enjoy it. I feel that radiance. But in the process of being serious, if I become very judgmental of how someone else might not be doing what I'm doing, that's draining seriousness. So you'll know what that draining, and what is it draining? It's really draining joy out of you. A way in which you can guard yourself against this draining seriousness, depleting joy from you is having a daily joy ritual. Do at least one thing every day that actually does give you joy, whatever it might be, whatever it might be. And by the way, that is how I develop my regular practice of oil pulling. That is how I developed this regular practice of oil pulling, because it gives me so much joy, the freshness in the mouth, that wonderful clean enamel of my teeth that I'm left with after I've completed the oil pulling. It's just simply awesome. And so it was like my daily joy ritual. I began with it in the morning, and it gave me that health and vitality. And as I saw my gum disease disappearing and the cavities in my teeth just completely, correcting themselves, I began this practice in 2013 when I was in Bali, introduced by my dear friend JP. She used to do it. And initially it was like, I feel like I'm gagging with this oil. But actually changing that association with how it made me feel, it took about 9 or 10 days to start noticing the transformation of my mouth and my teeth, that I decided to make it my daily joy ritual. And I do it. I do it diligently, even to this day, wherever I am. So you create whatever your joy ritual is. For me, it is important to not have something additional to what I'm already doing, because that I just don't have a way of fitting all that in. So having a ritual that integrates with my life is perfect. So the daily joy ritual is great in this way. Oil pulling does that for me. So you arrive at what that might be. The 10th anchor is coherence. The 10th anchor of embodiment is coherence. Coherence harmonizes your heart, mind, and energy fields. And we have a whole portal on coherence that we've already done. But coherence is an that anchor of embodiment, because of its harmonizing impact. Heart, mind, and energy fields. Your entire field is harmonized and anchored into your present. You will actually find, I used to have an irregular heartbeat, heart murmur, they call it. And this was in 2010. Coherence was one of the first things that I worked with for myself. You know, that was one of the first things that disappeared in terms of my well-being. It rectified itself within a matter of weeks, simply by embodying coherence. Who does it impact? It absolutely impacts you, your influence, and has you become sensitive to group resonance. And how can you integrate it? This is where writing becomes really helpful. Or, many of you have done the morning practice with me. So I use mudras, this very simple acupressure points that you integrate. They help you quite a lot. You'll have your own heart brain practices. Writing does that for me, so graphology, um, infused writing really helps in enabling this integration to take place of coherence. What is the experience of coherence? As an anchor of embodiment, you feel harmonized, you look luminous, and you sound resonant. A very simple test that you can use is simply asking, am I fragmented or coherent? Even before you speak, you can ask, am I fragmented or coherent? And when I talk about the check-in and check-out words, it allows you to be coherent when you are able to simply, declare what you are present to. If you feel fragmented, then there's lots more going on in that little voices chattering away. So a simple test, am I fragmented or coherent? You'll get the answer. Allowing the emotional chaos to continue, that is the danger. If you're experiencing emotional chaos, use the tool of acknowledgement. Acknowledge what is causing that emotional chaos. Acknowledge how you're experiencing it. Where in your body are you experiencing it? Don't attempt to do anything about it. Just simply acknowledge, 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 and then unconditionally accept all that is. Acknowledgement is a really great way to guard yourself against it. It could be your heart coherence practice. Get yourself back into that state of yumminess, and you are in a state of coherence. Even listening to the Age of Brilliance Portal of Coherence recordings will enable this to happen for you. The 11th anchor is flow. Brilliance embodies best when energy flows and is not forced. You know that already. When you are experiencing flow, you are able to experience and radiate your brilliance. Who does it impact? It impacts you in terms of it impacts your productivity, creativity, and the ease with which you show up as a leader. It impacts you by keeping you in the center of the flourishing triad, which means you have anchored flourishing, harmony, and humility. How can you integrate this? This is where you proactively follow the yummy yes. And that will automatically release the forced no. So the yummy yes is really the way you integrate flow. How do you experience this? It feels effortless. You look graceful. You sound like synchronicity. And you magnetize synchronicity. Synchronicity is also one of the Age of Brilliance portals that we have already completed on. A simple test you can use, am I flowing or forcing? Every time you compromise, you are forcing a compromise. You will not be able to say I'm flowing. Sometimes you can choose, for whatever reason, you can choose proactively to compromise and declare it as a choice that you make with conscious awareness, owning its consequences, in which case you will experience yourself flowing because you've done it as a conscious choice. It wasn't a forced compromise. The danger to watch out for is resistance. And a guard that you can use against resistance is a practice of surrender. Surrender to your own inner knowing. I surrender to the will of the all-knowing. The twelfth anchor is gratitude. Gratitude seals embodiment in love. The frequency of love is the amplifying frequency, and gratitude seals it in that amplifying frequency of love, and therefore gratitude amplifies. And what is the consequence of gratitude? Peace intensifies. Who does it impact? It impacts your relationships. It impacts you in experiencing abundance. It impacts you in terms of deep, deep healing. Many of you already have gratitude practices. You can integrate it by ending your day with a gratitude practice. I do this every day. The last thing I do before I close my eyes is really acknowledge everything that I can be grateful for as I lie on this bed. And I go up close and personal. It could be my earthing mat, my magnetic mattress, that wonderful hug of my infrared blanket that I have, you know, all of those things, as well as many other things that might have occurred during the day. How does that experience feel? You feel expansive. You look soft-eyed. You sound appreciative. A very simple test. Did I thank the gift of life today? And the danger that can take you off track here is taking things for granted. And your daily gratitude ritual is your guard against it. It's a very simple one. So work with it, integrate it in your own way. With this portal of embodiment that we have now opened fully, the vision of a life anchored in brilliance is what has been invoked. When all of the 12 anchors are activated, you immediately stop chasing brilliance. You embody it. Your relationships deepen. Your leadership transforms. Your health Creativity and influence soars. Embodiment means you are the transmission. Everywhere you go, brilliance follows. As we close this sacred journey of opening of this portal of embodiment, pause and feel. Your body is no longer just flesh and bone. It is the temple of brilliance. Your breath is no longer ordinary. It is the rhythm of brilliance. Your choices are no longer random. They are the artistry of brilliance at play. You are not waiting to embody brilliance. You are brilliance embodied. When the 12 anchors are alive in you, you will experience life in its fullest. It ceases to be a struggle and it becomes a dance. Your presence itself becomes a transmission. Without words, you uplift. Without effort, you inspire. Without trying, you transform. This is the gift of embodiment in the age of brilliance. It's not just for you, it is for everyone that your life touches. So go forth, anchored, alive, radiant. Walk into your world as brilliance walking. Speak into your world as brilliance speaking. Love into your world as brilliance loving. And remember always, the brilliance you seek is the brilliance you are. And as you live it, you light the path for the whole world. With that, I declare the portal of embodiment open. And it brings us to the completion of this transmission. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy being the embodiment of your brilliance and take the next step next. Thank you. Namaste. I'm going to complete the meeting now.